Going live. Sweet. I think we're in. Perfect. Good.
Nice.
All right, guys. Welcome back to my third live streaming tonight here in Vancouver. I finally made it back here in Canada. So for all of you who aren't aware of whereabouts I am in the world, I finally made it back out of quarantine. Actually, my wife has also made it here in Canada. So that's a little bit of a life update there. But tonight's topic, we're gonna have a certain individual who I got to share the skies with over the past, well, actually over the rainy seasons here in Vancouver. Late last year till early last year, he did his solo with me. So without further ado, we have Jacky Tian on the live stream today, and we're gonna talk about some of the burning topics or questions to give you guys a more proper heads up in preparation for your flight training. Because, like what you can see here on the title, we're gonna talk about the what they don't tell you about the flight training. So sort of the behind the scenes and the things that you wish you knew beforehand. All right, so we're gonna let Jacky speak in a bit here, but let me just plug a lot of my. Oh, there you go. We got Carlito Violin says hello, hello. Please share the video to all your aviation friends who wants to tune in, and we can talk about a lot of stuff. And there you go. We got Shazaib Arif. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name well, but hello wherever you are in the world. So please do share it to all your aviation friends who wants to know more about aviation in Canada in general, because it's a little bit of a controversial topic tonight. We're going to try to keep it short, but Jacky knows my style, and sometimes I tend to talk forever, and he will agree to that. So we'll get to know more about him. But like I said, before that, I want to plug a lot of my affiliates, mainly my Flying Ice Optics. So if you guys are looking for any sunglass for flying, check out Flying Ice Optics. The link should be underneath here, and use my coupon code PAULGO for an extra 10% off. All right, so like I said, sorry, without further ado, Mr. Jacky Tian, a fresh private pilot who is also in fact Canadian, but has since moved on to the States, back to his work eventually, because now the borders are sort of opening up. So we'll get to know about him now. We'll let Jacky speak, I guess. Jacky, you can say hello to our viewers here.
Hey, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Paul. I guess first of all, I apologize if I get cut off. I think the Wi-Fi here is a little bit not too great, so bear with me on if that happens. And yeah, I guess I'll quickly introduce myself. Like Paul said, I do work in the States. Spent a good chunk of the last few years here, and due to COVID, due to the whole situation, I'm from Canada, so I actually returned home for a good about a year. And yeah, like I've always had dreams of learning to fly a plane, but it's hard when you're either in school or you're working, just trying to find free time to actually get to an airport and like have all the logistics of getting your pilot's license. It's not easy, but luckily where I lived in Canada is close to the airport where Paul teaches at. So all that kind of worked in my favor, and that's kind of why I signed up and how I got into it. Yeah, I mean, I just finished my private license about a month and a half ago, early April. So yeah, bit of a fresh pilot. Have the experience right in the top of my head. Everything's still there. Yeah, there's a lot to speak to you guys about today. So why don't we get started?
Yeah, no, Jacky sort of had this rushed pacing in his training, which was sort of forced to him. So I guess if he would have done it again the second time around, he would have just taken his time. So more on that later. But like I said, Jacky he's completed his PPL throughout the rainy Vancouver days, which is sort of unheard of. When you finish your PPL in about, I don't know, what, 4 months, Jacky, was it?
Yeah, it was roughly that.
4 months, and he started what, November? It was crazy.
November, yes.
So there was a lot of like unnatural stress already in an already packed and stressful environment. So, Jacky, let's get to know you more so that the viewers, because we can see a lot of questions now. Hello, Smith. Hello, Agent Mac. And there's a bunch of questions about what do you sorry, there's a question about do you recommend training at Pro IFR or not? Obviously, we'll get to that in a bit here, so bear with us. Please let us know if you're having any issues with the audio and all that, and yeah, let's keep it active here in the chat. Okay, Jacky, what was your motivation? I know you were sort of an oddball here in terms of you wanted to become a pilot just for the pure fun of it, right? You weren't the typical guys who come into a flight school and they sign up and they want to become an airline pilot, right? So, like I said, you were the oddball. What was your motivation? What was the reason why you wanted to become a pilot?
To be honest, I've always enjoyed challenging things. I think the process is tough, but when you actually achieve it, like, finally accomplish a challenging thing, it's so satisfying. Like I kind of mentioned earlier, I grew up, the first time I sat on a plane, I was like, wow, this is incredible. Like mankind has progressed so far to be able to achieve this. And I kind of just pushed that in the back of my head, like, oh, maybe I could fly one day. That'd be pretty cool. So I kind of put it on like a side bucket list of mine, and that's kind of where the motivation came from. Yeah, like Paul said, I really just wanted to do it for fun. I think, becoming a commercial pilot and flying airplanes for a job doesn't seem like what I want to do. But, doing it for fun, doing it on my own time, that sounded great to me. So that's kind of where my motivation came from.
Awesome. And a little bit of backstory on how he found Pro IFR, our school, because he just lives, and I'll let you explain it. So why did you choose Pro IFR?
I actually, right when I got home to Canada, I was like, hey, I got some free time. Let me pursue this thing I've been always wanted to do, right? I looked into a bunch of schools. There's actually 9 of them if you just like Google it. But if you actually do some like deep and ask around, there's quite a few schools in like the whole Vancouver area. I could drive there in less than 10 minutes. And I thought about it, even though, factor all the things in, price, time, like I think time was a really important one, right? If you're driving an hour just to school, which some students are, it's going to take a huge chunk out of your day. So I didn't want that, and that's kind of how I settled on Pro IFR.
Exactly, and let's try to nitpick here on our basically our focus on the topic, right? So you're not gonna choose a school so far away because you don't want to lose valuable time in commute. Because a 2-hour booking, right? And this is part of what people don't tell you about flight training. A 2-hour booking is actually a full day affair, right? You prepare for a flight 3 hours before. To check for the weather, to make sure that everything is good in terms of your preparation, and then you do the flight for 2 hours, and then you actually end up studying even more after the flight. So with that, you have to make sure that you choose a school that's convenient for you, right? Because part of it, and Jacky and I have this common ground in basketball, in NBA essentially. So we got to really connect through that. And sometimes it's not about choosing a proper school, right? It's rather a proper fit with an instructor. Would you agree with that, Jacky?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say it's tough because when you choose the schools, often you don't know who the instructors are going to be until you're assigned to them. Mm-hmm. But I know, most schools, as a student, you're the customer, right? So obviously pursuing what's best for you. And I totally agree with what you said there. I think having the right fit of an instructor will make your life so much easier. It will take you far fewer hours. You'll get it done faster, just because you're able to connect with them in ways beyond the flight training, right? If you're able to do that, you're going to learn things a lot smoother. Things will go a lot easier for you. And that's kind of the common ground I found with Paul. So it made it definitely a lot easier.
That's awesome. That's why part of me sort of missed flying with Jacky, because our sort of journey got cut short because I had to leave for the Philippines, and he was sort of rushing his training. But we'll get to reconnect again sometimes later this year. Maybe we'll do a vlog together and upload it on YouTube. So yeah, that's sort of the long-term plan that we have. Okay, so are you still with me, Jacky? Are we good with the audio and all that?
Yep.
Okay,
Can
good.
you hear me?
So yes,
sounds good.
Good. All right, so now let's proceed to sort of the second or first major topic here. Time limited, the pressure, right? That's sort of the behind the scenes that you wish you knew before, and we know there's always pressure when it matters to you, right? When you step into flight training, there's always that natural pressure. But what kind of pressure weren't you that you basically did not expect that you had to overcome in your own journey? Can you elaborate more on that, please?
Probably done a bit of Googling or talking to people. They'll tell you the requirements, right? Like you need 45 to 60 hours of flying. You need to, go to ground school for 40 hours, which, sounds pretty doable in terms of number of hours. But what they don't tell you is how many hours go into the preparation for all of those hours. What I mean by that is, like Paul said earlier, you have a 2-hour booking for a day, right? But that's actually 4 to 5 hours, maybe even 6 hours in terms of preparation, getting to the school, any, after follow-ups, debriefs, things like that. So there's a lot of time pressure for sure if you're trying to get it done as fast as you can or in a reasonable time frame. That really adds up, I think. The other thing is definitely the mentality, I'd say. You go in expecting, like I definitely went in expecting it was going to be not as hard as it turned out to be. Not in terms of what you learn. You learn expectations. For me, initially, I was told it would take 45 to 60 hours, right? And to me, the expectation that should take no more than a few weeks. I even read online people were getting it done in a couple of weeks. I had the expectation coming in. So when things weren't lining up, when the weather wasn't good and we had to cancel, that really hits your mentality. And if you're expecting things to go well and things kind of get derailed, that it's not easy. And that's kind of one of the
Exactly. It sounds so cliche, and I almost sound like a broken record, but you have to overcome adversity because myself also included, I actually had to overcome early adversities throughout my PPL training, which I did not expect. First was the weather, right? And we'll talk more about the weather because that sounds so, like I said, sounds so cliche and it almost feels like a repetitive topic to talk about. But you mentioned something about along the lines of stress associated with flight training. Is this like a natural stress, normal stress that you feel, or was it something more different?
fun. And I would say it's normal stress, right? Like if you're not stressed about something, you're probably not taking it seriously. It is normal stress in that sense, but more so that it's different than what you kind of expect. You're expecting that, oh, okay, these are hard exercises. I'm pushing how to like land a plane, fly a plane, things like that. You having expectations.
What happened?
So that is definitely what I would say was the biggest stress factor.
Okay, Jackie, we're gonna take a quick break here. I think we have an audio problem. I was told. Let me call you again, um, and then I'll do my quick like sort of plug here, and I'll greet all the viewers, and hopefully it's much better. Okay,
Sounds good.
all right. Okay, guys, thanks for letting me know about it. We'll reconnect with Jackie here. We'll give it about a few seconds. But I just want to say a quick hi to Kuya Alfred, and I know a lot of people are talking on the chat. Keep it going. And if you want to contribute to the channel, there's that super chat function there. You can show your support by clicking that monetized function there. So we are all okay now. One sec here. Hopefully it's much better. Because Jackie lives in Hawaii now, so.
Hey,
Hello. Okay. Well,
audio.
reconnect with these guys here. Check, check.
Check, check.
Okay, good. I think we're back.
All right.
Okay, so guys, just bear with us because I think Jackie lives in the island and the internet isn't really that great, but we're trying to make it work. Okay, good. Where were we? Stress associated. So,
Stress, mentality, yeah.
yeah, so managing stress, right? But more than anything, it's all about managing expectations. So, part of what they don't really tell you about flight training is sort of managing your expectations, right? Because a lot of students when they first walk in, they have this ultimate plan already set up in their minds. Okay, I'm gonna finish my flight training in 1 year, but none of those, actually 90% of the time, none of those will happen, just because of how the weather will affect your training, how sometimes financial will affect your training, and let alone airplane bookings in a busy flying school, right? So can you talk more about managing expectations, perhaps? There's this what we call when we talked about when we did our practice run, a professor vibe as opposed to an instructor who you get along with, right? So maybe you can elaborate more on that.
Yeah, sure. Let me talk a bit about the professor thing you just mentioned. Um, it it's so the difference I found between Paul and a typical professor is, a professor may tell you this is wrong, this is right, give you a bad grade, but that's what all a professor is there for, right? Like you're either yelling at you, telling you did something wrong, but a good instructor will never critique you, right? They'll say, okay, you didn't do something right. Let's get through it again. Let's do it again. It makes you, even when you fail, even when you don't do something right, it makes you feel the encouragement and you know, the confidence to try again and do it again. And I think that's the difference, professor, that Paul was mentioning. And to your point about the mentality, yeah, the toughest thing is when things don't align. Your expectations of, today is a good weather day, or I'm going to spend X amount of dollars on flight training, things like that will not go how you expect. And that's one of the biggest takeaways from flight training that I had personally is when things don't go to how you perceived it should go, it's okay, right? You can't control everything. And if you have that mindset going in, it'll make it a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, and obviously part of the process is enjoying the process, right? Which is oftenly overlooked, and I myself can sometimes be guilty with that because we're so locked in with following the syllabus, making sure the student improves, that we tend to overlook just the fun out of flying. And I try to commit myself by every student that I fly with, I try to keep myself in check and making sure that I'm still sharing the joy and my passion of aviation. So I think you can attest to that, and I think I've shown that to you multiple times in the past, and I'll keep showing it to my future students. Okay, so let's move forward here. Let us talk about a little bit about ego, right? Especially because not a lot of us are the same, right? And we all have this tendency to sometimes compare ourselves to other students. Hey, I think I started with this guy last month, but how come he's doing his solo ahead of me, right? So, can you talk more about that? High hours, low hours. How did it affect your training? Did it even affect your training? And yeah, basically elaborate more.
It for sure affected my training, definitely. I'm a pretty competitive guy. So, and when other people are progressing at this rate, there I'm comparing the minute details of how fast they're going. Definitely, I don't think it's healthy, but when you have a competitive personality, it definitely is part of you. Uh, for sure, I think ego coming in, I had some expectations, right? And of how fast I'll get it done, how much I'll spend, et cetera, et cetera. And it definitely boosted my ego during the first few lessons when, I was getting things done. Paul was saying good things, right? Like, you're doing well, we're progressing at a good rate. That boosted my ego because, now I'm like, okay, I'm on track. I have these expectations. Now I believe I can get it done. But that's actually, I think, kind of a fallacy because not everything is created equal, right? The first lesson obviously isn't going to be the same as like the 15th lesson, which are, right? The day you learn about the parts of the plane isn't as easy as landing a plane, right? Like
Exactly.
those two things you can't really compare. So, uh, that ego thing, don't let one thing change your ego for the entire duration of the course, is what I say.
That's very well put. No, I definitely agree with that because it's easy for us to get caught up with, comparing ourselves, that we tend to lose sight of what's really important, your own training. And I've seen a lot of students as well fall into this trap, and like what Zaib Arif here mentioned, there's sometimes ego among senior students because, hey, you know what, I've been to that spot before, I know how to do this now, and we sometimes there's that vibe in the school as well, which is um, like what Jacky said, it's unhealthy, but I think it's just part of us being human beings. So you just have to overcome through that. And not a lot of instructors will talk you down through it. And part of not a lot of instructors will talk you down through it is also the topic of money. Right? There's so many factors. And sorry, we're switching now. We're switching gears now here. We're talking about money, right? You saw this website from a certain flying school. Oh, PPL done in like 15,000 grand, something like that. But then halfway through your training, you're finding out, oh man, I've already spent 10,000 grand. So that means I have to spend another 10,000 grand to finish my training. Part of it is just, like I said, managing expectations, right? You won't be the same. Basically, all those advertisements that you see on a school's website, they're all Transport Canada minimum standards. Jacky, did you ever struggle on this? Did you ever really focus too much, like deeply in terms of keeping track of your finances for your flight training?
A little bit. I think comparatively, not as much as some other students you may have seen, but it definitely, I think, because you're paying for your flight training as you go, right? Like each flight you do, you're paying them after with your credit card, your debit card, whatever it is. You see how much you're paying per flight.
Okay, so give me a sec here. Let me just figure out audio's good. Can you do check? Okay, let's do another recall, and I can start answering a lot of the questions here. Sorry, guys, just bear with us. It's not about the software that we're using, but Jacky just lives in a cave right now. Let me just call you again, Jacky. One sec. Sorry, guys, just bear with us here. Jacky lives in a... Check. Thank you guys for letting us know. Hopefully it's much better. We might need to recall Jacky every 10 minutes or so. Check. Say check, Jacky.
Check.
Good, loud and clear. Yeah, because Jacky lives in Hawaii, and the internet really in the island isn't that great where he lives exactly. But obviously, I'm not going to say where in Hawaii because I don't want you to track him down. But let me answer a few questions here. So is it complicated to be a flight instructor in United States if I graduated having my... in United States if I am graduated having my... You know what? I can't really answer that question. My brain isn't processing right now. I'm so locked in and focused on the script that we have. But let me know. There you go. Audio is good now. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys for letting me know. Again, super chat function. If you guys have any time or any spare tips or contributions for the channel, it's greatly appreciated. Do Transport Canada allow students to take PPL exams before logging flight hours? No. They actually require you to have 10 hours minimum of flight time before you're even allowed to write the exam. Hey Paul, are you done with type rating? Type rating is such a vast word. What do you mean by type rating? Like a type rating for a certain airplane? If so, no. I am limited to I am multi-engine rated. So anything multi under 12,500 pounds is the only one I can fly. Okay, good. Okay, let's go back to the question. So let's try to repeat my question again. Hopefully it doesn't cut out this time. but essentially about the money, right? I asked Jacky if he was sort of worried and tracking his money, his expenses for his flight training, and your answer, Jacky, was just a quick short recap there.
Sure, yeah, I definitely was. Maybe not as much as some of your other students for sure, but I think I did compare it a few times. I think especially because you are paying it as you go, right? Each flight you do, you come out, you're paying with a credit card, and you see that number posted to your account, right? So it's not like tuition where you pay all of it up front, you kind of forget about it. Because they keep reminding you each time you fly that you're paying this much, it definitely bothers you. So that is probably something you kind of have to get over the hump, because if you're concerned about each day's flight and how much it costs, you'll never focus on the joy of flying and learning for sure.
Very well said. No, I definitely 100% agree because when I was a student as well, I wasn't really financing a portion of my training. It was mostly my parents and my grandmother. So shout out to them. But it definitely took a toll when I was doing my multi-engine rating and my instrument rating because then you're very deep now into this journey and you're spending a lot of money and you're worried, especially you're flying a multi, which is about 600 Canadian dollars per hour, and you really want to maximize your time up in the air, right? You really want to avoid ground delays as well, such as waiting for clearance for takeoff in probably Canada's busiest airport in terms of air traffic. So this is one of the things that not a lot of instructors will sit you down and tell you about before you start your flight training. We'll sort of segue into that now. The unforeseen things, which is airport delays, airplanes being snagged all of a sudden, sudden change of weather. Jacky, what were your experiences about these things? Sorry, Jacky, give me a second here. Are we good? Are we good? Maybe now. Check, check, check. Okay. Sorry, bear with us, guys. The deeper we go into this live stream, the more I think it becomes difficult. Let me recall Jacky again, and and it's perfect timing, right? We're not gonna let this affect a very good conversation that we're having. So let me call Jacky again, and let me address a few questions here. Okay, let me address a few questions before I call him. Just make sure that we can reset that totally. Okay, so it's totally different in our country to take exams. Okay, I agree with that. Oh, hi JP, how's it going? Are you back in the States? Any advice for instrument rating? Do not fixate. Two things you wanna avoid: fixating and omitting. So that's the best advice I can give you. What craft is best for your rating in Canada? I don't really understand what question, like what that means. Okay. All right. Any more questions before he's back? Let me. Yeah. That's why you guys click that super chat function. Finance, finance the channel so we can upgrade our equipments here. Yes, I am back in Canada. All right, Jacky.
Check, check.
Good. Okay, so let's try to take advantage of this moment that we have here. Where were we? Unforeseen things.
Yeah, unforeseen
Please.
things. Yeah, sorry about keep cutting out. We'll try to manage with what we have. But yeah, definitely, I was luckily didn't have as bad as some of the stories you may have heard. I had a few snags, few bad weather days, but all in all, it worked out, and I consider myself pretty fortunate. But that just ties back to the expectations, right? I think Vancouver especially is pretty tricky with weather. I don't know where all of you guys are, but maybe you're lucky to have a good weather place. Vancouver, you wake up one morning, 2 hours before your flight, weather looks good, and then you show up at the airport, weather turns completely garbage, and that's just kind of the things you kind of have to deal with. And plane snags is just another category. lining up on the runway just to find out it's an hour-long wait, that's another category. These are all things that you kind of have to have set the expectations for yourself going in, right? If you know for a fact these might happen to you, then having the expectation will make it a lot easier. If you go in with a full expectation, things are going to go perfect, you may be let down, is what I'll say.
Yeah, then again, it's falling back to what we said in the beginning: managing expectations, right? Being flexible, adapting to adversity, making sure that you can cope up with the certain circumstances that you are faced with. So a little bit of segue into that. That means these unforeseen things, whether it's your fault or not your fault, that means you have a tendency to repeat flight. Did that happen to you in your training?
Yes, definitely. I think it was towards the end when it was all about perfection, and there was a couple gaps between each lesson. I think towards your earlier part of your flight training, if you're good and your instructor thinks you can handle it, typically you'll move on at a pretty steady rate. But towards the end, when you're preparing for your flight test, everything's about getting the minute details to perfection, right? Flight training isn't like, oh, okay, you just, if you can fly, you can go, right? You gotta be able to do things and execute to a certain level, and that's what the instructors are there to make sure you can do. So yeah, you're gonna be repeating a lot, and for me, that was not what I expected, right? So it was tough. I thought, I wasn't doing great, or I was, it was hurting my confidence. But later I learned, that's just part of the process. It's that you're training yourself to be perfect. You're building the small things each flight.
Good. Yeah, no, straight down to the point. Exactly how I would say it to my students. So I know we had this practice run, and you told me along the lines of the less you are worried about money, it reduces a layer of stress from the workload, right? So can you elaborate more on that?
Sure, yeah. Can you still hear me? Is the audio still good?
Yes, it's still good.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I think to your point, you mentioned money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple of things that kind of are related to money, like, time, how long you're spending. The less you're worried about all of these things, the easier it's going to be. Because I found myself sometimes in the sky or even on the taxiway coming back, like looking at the time, right? Those of you who don't fly, like we measure the time in the plane with a Hobbs meter, which ticks point 0.1 every, I think, 6 minutes you use. And that's kind of how you pay. It's by the Hobbs meter. And you're looking at it, it's about the tick. So you're like, okay, I don't want to pay an extra $20, $30, however much it was. So you're speeding down the runway, just trying to make it back as fast as you can. And that's not good practice. That's not, good etiquette whatsoever when you're flying a plane. So yeah, I'd say the less you're worried about that, the more you just let things take its toll, the easier it's going to be, the faster you'll actually end up getting it done.
Right on point, because it's completely unsafe. I've never done it per se, but I've seen a lot of students fall into that trap. They're speeding down along the taxiway because they're trying to avoid that point 0.1 to tick on that Hobbs meter, because they know they're going to have to spend more money on that flight, which is, in my opinion, lack of a better term, is just reckless and, maybe borderline stupid, because that's not what we're trying to teach to our students. And we'll elaborate more on that. We're sort of getting into the last bit of the interview here. Been very good. Been a very good session so far. So hopefully Jacky's audio hold up here, and he has a perfect example of the biggest scam that he has experienced in his flight training journey. But before that, let me just thank JP. JP, my man, you are the best. You have just contributed to this channel quite the big fortune there, my friend. So let me just go answer his question here. Any advice for getting into instrument rating? Starting my training with it right now. Oh yeah, because you are also a fresh PPL, if I'm not mistaken. So like I said, avoid fixating, avoid omitting. Those are the two fundamentals, sort of skills that you will carry on towards your flight training in your instrument rating. And I know Jacky might be considering on becoming an instrument pilot as well towards a CPL. I don't know. Maybe I can convince him to become a commercial pilot. But just whatever approach that you have on your PPL, try to maintain that, right? You should not change your study style just because you're now advancing to a different topic, advancing to a more I don't know, demanding um, syllabus or course or rating, just be yourself, right? And we'll talk more about that as well. But thank you, JP. You're the best. Okay, you can do okay. Good morning, Paul. Enjoying your live stream. Okay, hi Jeff. How's it going? Live from Gander, New Finland. Can you please tell me? Okay, I can't speak for Pro IFR, but we'll talk to Jacky again here. Jacky. All right. So, like I said, biggest scam in aviation. Hopefully, you don't cut out this time because this is such a juicy topic here. Can you tell our viewers what was your personal biggest scam in aviation? And by the way, a little bit of a disclaimer, this is just an inside joke between the two of us.
Yeah, big disclaimer. It's a little clickbaity, but for sure, this was. I'll tell you guys a story. Basically, we were sitting in the plane waiting for the lineup on the runway. This was right before I was about to do my first solo, I believe, and we kind of just sat there, just waiting for the call to allow us to do the circuit to actually do the solo. I think we just kept waiting. The plane's been running for like half an hour already. The Hobbs has gone up 0.5. That's money gone, right? Like I said earlier, each 0.1 is money you got to pay. And that's kind of, I was sitting there, we were just chatting, and I was like, hey, this is a big scam. You're not learning anything. You're just sitting in the plane, throwing away money. And to this day, it's kind of been our inside joke. Each flight you do kind of has a little bit of that scam time where you're sitting in the plane just waiting for maybe 0.2, 0.3. And that's expected. I think once you understand that, you get used to it for sure. But coming in, I was like, wow, this is a scam.
Exactly. And no one will really sit you down. Even myself, I tend to have a hard time explaining that to students because it's sort of the loss that you guys are sort of forced to take in, because we're not going to shut down the engine on the taxiway waiting for the clearance to take off. It's just, we won't do that because there's even more time wasted. If you shut down the engine, turn it on again, the flight won't happen anymore. Something like that, right? So, Jacky, are you still with us here? Check.
Yep. Check.
Okay. Can we do an audio check just before we wrap it up here? Are we good with the audio, wifey? Okay, a little bit lagging here, but let's, you know what? Let's try to be safe. Let's do a quick intermission before we shut it down, because I'm not seeing Jacky anymore. Video froze. It's essentially okay. Let me call you back, Jacky. Okay.
Okay.
Check. Radio check, please. Loud and clear. 5x5. Oh,
Nice.
Jacky misses flying so much, I betcha. Oh, guys, Jacky hasn't flown since he finished his PPL because he moved back to the States. So let me just try to let him aware of what he's missing out here back in Canada.
Yeah, it's a whole process to get your license converted to an American one, so it's gonna take a while.
Okay, awesome. So, Jacky, let's sort of wrap this thing up. Let's take about 5-10 minutes tops. What were your realizations early on in the flight training that you can give, our viewers some tips so that they are better off, transitioning to their flight training journey as well?
Sure, yeah. Early on, I remember the first lesson I had. It was the biggest realization was something I mentioned earlier. It's like, wow, this is gonna take a lot more of my time than I thought. So I actually work a full-time job on the side, and I was planning to kind of just flight train as a part-time thing. But it ended up kind of being like two full-time things at the same time, mainly because I remember Paul said, okay, lesson plan 1, all right, we're going to have a session for 2 hours, but before you come in, make sure you prep this for 2 hours, make sure you prep this for another hour. And it's like, wow, there's so much that needs to go in. Second thing was probably a few lessons in when you actually get on the runway, when you get in the plane. It's not like you get in the plane for the first time, you're just taxiing around, driving it around, and it's so much harder than I expected. If you've driven a car, it's not the same, right? You drive a car with your hands. whereas a plane, you taxi it with your feet. And that, obviously not all of us grow up sitting in a plane all day, unlike, a car, which I'm sure when you grow up, you sit in the car pretty often. So that was a pretty big shock to me. It's hard. It's not as easy as I thought. Just controlling the plane alone, because you're the pilot, it's all in your hands. It's not as easy as you think. Now, obviously, after you've done it a couple of times, it becomes second nature. But that first, sticker shock is what really got me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's sort of wrap it up here. I don't have anything to add to that anymore. That was very well said. Hopefully, you guys are sort of paying attention because it matters, right? The first couple flights that you will do, you will hit a big wall, a big learning curve, right? So the ability to adapt is such an understatement in aviation that I keep repeating it, and I sound like a broken record, like I said, but it's the key to success. And speaking of key to success, Jacky, what were your keys to success? Did you develop your own? Do you have to develop your own sort of study style, or do you have to copy someone's study style? What was your approach, and essentially, what was your style?
Good question. I don't think there's a right study method to get this done the right way. I don't think there's a perfect way, for lack of a better word. I actually asked this question to a couple peers when I first started, like, is there a right way to prepare for this? Is there a right way to study for this? And their answer was typically no, like, do what works for you. And what works for you just has to match a couple criteria, right? You got to be able to, be organized. You got to be on top of things, have things prepared either the night before, the morning of, just, be able to, if it's like a 2:00 booking you shouldn't be prepared, ready to go at 2. You should be prepared like 2 hours, an hour before, and already on the way. That's kind of the study tips I have. It's not change your study method or follow someone else's study method. Is do what you know and just stay organized and on top of things. That's probably what helped me the most.
Okay, awesome. So I guess that is going to wrap it up. I hope you guys learned a thing or two about this whole sort of controversial topic that we have, because what we're trying to achieve here, or at least our goal, is to let you guys be aware of the things that people don't tell you about flight training. So when you walk in, you don't find yourself in a shock state and be like, oh my God, no one told me about the extra costs. No one told me about the weather delays. At least this is what we're trying to achieve. So hopefully you guys appreciate it. We'll let Jacky speak for one last time. Hopefully the audio is still good.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say our goodbyes, and I'll try to address the questions here before I end the stream. But yeah, go ahead, Jacky.
Audio still good?
Yes,
awesome.
Audio's still good.
Yeah, no, I think we talked quite a bit about like the negative behind the scenes and what they don't tell you. A lot of it's a little, down and sad, but there's definitely some positives. And coming in, I don't know, and like spins and engine stalls, just basically making a plane nosedive, things like that, like which you don't expect to learn when you're a fresh pilot, right? So those were some awesome things that I got to just experience and have fun. And if you guys end up doing
awesome. And just in case the audio wasn't clear there for just a bit, Jacky was just saying flight training is still fun. You guys should pursue it. And should you end up hitting a wall, then maybe my own tips for you as well. I just spoke to a student this morning when I was at school, when I was at work. When you're struggling with your confidence, always think of that burning moment, that burning. When you were a kid, it's probably a childhood dream for you to become a pilot. Try to think of that moment. Try to go back, put yourself in that position again, and that should help you out, ease out the stress, ease out the tension, and that should, give you a little bit of extra boost to get over the hump that you are experiencing currently. So I think we will end up the live stream here. And sorry, I think I accidentally timed out JP. I was gonna pin his comment, but there was no pin function on this live chat. So, whoopsie, that was my bad. JP, as always, you are the MVP of the live stream again. Thank you for showing up and showing your support. So you have the ultimate shout out tonight. But rest assured that we will do another live stream in the future, and I think I will be publishing my third third podcast episode, and it has something to do with the topic that we had just discussed tonight. So I'll elaborate more on these topics, and maybe an example of that topic is why do flight schools keep accepting students at such a rampant pace? Why is there no cap? And then the other one is choosing a 152 versus a 172. Will it really matter in terms of fuel savings, money savings, and in terms of just overall maximizing your time up in the air? So Jacky has actually heard a little bit of that when we were doing our practice run. So I think and I believe it will be a good, sort of live, I keep saying live, podcast episode. So stay tuned for that. So guys, if you have any more last minute questions, just keep them coming here in the comments section while we say goodbye with Jacky. Jacky's gonna hang around, so if you have any questions with him, hopefully the audio is okay. People are what is this? Okay, let me address a few questions. Shaz Zaib again said, just don't think about the job. Your passion is all that matters. When am I uploading a new flight vlog again? Hopefully soon. I've got a bunch of stuff, current personal matter that's more important right now. So the podcast is sort of my top priority in terms of publishing content. But a flight vlog should happen soon because I need to promote my Flying Eyes Optics affiliate. So there's that. Jake just joined in. Jake, you can just rewatch the video. Hopefully you can save the link, because it might take a couple of days for YouTube to upload everything on YouTube. On YouTube, so just try to save the link and rewatch the whole thing. We're trying to keep it under an hour so people are not bored the hell out, I guess. See you around. Yeah, definitely. See you around CZBB. Okay, that's it, guys. Jacky, thank you for joining our live stream, for being an awesome guest. We'll do one again in the future. Hopefully, when you are back here in Canada, we can do another flight vlog. Not another flight vlog, but we can do another flight together, and hopefully a flight vlog with it. All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this to all your friends in aviation. And we'll see you on the next one. Later, guys.